Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat, a very special episode, as we'll get to in a second. My name is Aaron. With me, as always, is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Pretty good, and I think you know why.
Zach, you had a little bundle of joy delivered recently.
I did. You make it sound like something else, but no, I got a Steam Deck finally in the mail.
God.
I got my invite in my email to go ahead and actually purchase one, and I jumped on that very quickly. And it took like maybe a couple of days for that to like process, and then they shipped it out. And
Yeah, because I feel like you sent me that on Tuesday or maybe even Wednesday, and you were like, hey, I think it might be coming soon. And then you got it yesterday, I believe, right? Which was Friday?
yeah, I got it on Friday, and it was weird because there was like I had gotten like an update on like the processing of the order, and they were like, yeah, it's gonna ship Thursday and you should have it by Thursday night. I was like, oh, that's exciting. And then like Thursday, like all day, like there was just no update on it whatsoever. And I was like, And then Friday, it was like, now it's shipping and you should get it by end of day on Friday. And I ended up getting it, like I get off pretty early in the afternoons, and it had already arrived by the time I had gotten off work. So,
Well, we are going to talk all about it because I have a bunch of questions, but should we do a little bit of news first?
we should. Yeah, we've took a week off, so there's been quite a bit of things that have happened. So, first off, let's talk about Microsoft kind of trying to do like a Chromecast / Amazon Fire Stick for Game Pass. So
Yes, you sent me a text about this because this would basically, on this podcast, I have frequently talked about what if I buy an Xbox just to play Starfield. And this would make it so I would not have to do that. I could just buy a small, basically a Chromecast, probably for less than $50.
yeah.
And then just like play it on my big TV or stream it to my computer a la Stadia. And this seems like a great thing to do.
Yeah, makes all the sense in the world for them. I don't know why it's honestly taken them this long to come up with this. I mean, I don't know. There's no like on the horizon as far as like when this would be released, but yeah, they have to have been looking at like Stadia and Amazon Fire Sticks and all of that and going, we could do this too. Like for now, they've just been using their Xbox consoles as like, you can stream to this or you can stream to your phone. But yeah, why not just a little dongle that you connect to your TV and play it that way? Because then you wouldn't have to buy a console.
I'm all in on like cloud stuff, even though like the only game I've really put a large investment in is Cyberpunk, but I've played that on Stadia and it's been great to swap back and forth. It's been a great experience. So I'm all about my games living in the cloud. This is something I would definitely explore. I don't know. It depends on if I actually do build a new computer before Starfield comes out, since I'm going to have more time to do that since it got delayed.
Yeah, and
But
I'm
very excited for this.
Until they announced this, I also was thinking like, well, maybe I should get like, even if it was just to get one of those cheaper Xbox Series S's, just because those are actually available and easy.
Yeah,
to
they're
find.
everywhere.
And
Whenever I go to Target, there's like 5 of them.
yeah, they're easier to find and they don't cost as much as the Series X. And I was like, I could just get this connected to my TV and use it as my Game Pass like box, but it's like not as future proof as the Series X because it only outputs in I think 1440p as opposed to 4K.
It doesn't go full 4K.
And it doesn't have a disk drive, so you can't buy like physical games and use those. So that kind of sucks. So that has kept me from doing that. But now that there's this like streaming stick option, maybe I spend even less money and go with this. Although I think you do have to pay for the higher tier of Game Pass in order to get access to the game streaming. So very much like with Stadia Pro or something like that, like the idea is they'll give you a cheap piece of hardware that you can plug into a TV. And so you're not really buying like a console, but you're paying a subscription fee, and that sort of is the console that you're paying for.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
very
a hook, yeah.
similar, yeah, very similar thing, which is kind of funny because of how many people were like so anti Stadia, and now Microsoft is more or less just doing exactly what they did.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I think people jumped down Google's throat because they don't like Google, and they weren't really thinking too clearly about like what Stadia actually was. And it's turned out to be like a good service. Now, granted, they have not, like, they're sort of pulling back on their support for it a little bit, it seems like, and they've never really done a good job of like messaging around it, and they've also done a poor job of getting all the games, or the games people actually want for the service, which is where I think if Microsoft gets to the point where their streaming tech is as good as Stadia, then they will easily like wipe the floor with Stadia just because of all the exclusives they have access to.
Yeah, I couldn't even. I mean, Stadia would be, or not Stadia. Sorry, Starfield would be the big thing. Like, if this launches with Starfield and you get this day one, because they didn't ever say any sort of timeline for this. They just said it was in the future, right?
Yeah, I don't recall seeing that they had any sort of like planned release date for the streaming stick.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that would be a day one purchase for a ton of people if they could just, go to a Best Buy and get this streaming stick. Also, I mean, who's to say it's not going to be available on like Android TVs as just an app, you know?
Yeah, very much the same way that Stadia is just, something that you can play in like a web browser, or in like certain TVs, or like a set-top box. Like I have a NVIDIA Shield TV that has a Stadia app that I can use, so I don't necessarily have to go buy another Chromecast to use it. But Chromecasts are so cheap, you can just get one and have one on every TV you own.
It's true. They're like, and especially around Thanksgiving, like the day after Thanksgiving, you can get them for like $15 or something.
They're always on sale.
Let's shift to something that is not exciting.
Okay.
We're both pretty lukewarm on Gotham Knights. That game they showed, I feel like forever ago, and then it constantly got delayed.
Such that I forgot that it existed.
Yeah, it had a semi-impressive trailer, I feel like, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. That was interesting, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of hype has died for this game. And I guess they have decided to drop last gen, so it's no longer going to be coming out on PS4 and Xbox One. They released a demo, which people kind of laughed at because one of the characters basically has the ability to like jump through the sky on trampolines, which is weird. I don't know. Were you ever interested in this? Or, I mean, I think we both played Arkham Asylum, right? Or no, did you play Arkham Knight?
I started Arkham Asylum, but that was forever ago, and I never finished it. But I did watch a friend in college was playing it, and I watched some of him play it like much further into the game than I ever got. And it seemed cool, but yeah, I never.
Arkham Asylum was very fun, I have to say.
I liked the combat style, which was famously used in Sleeping Dogs, which I did play and loved. Mm-hmm. Very similar combat style, but no, I don't know. This is not something I'm particularly interested in. I thought it was more interesting that they were dropping the PS4 and Xbox One versions, which makes you think of something like Cyberpunk, where you're like, would this have just not run well on the last gen? And they were like, okay, we just need to dump this. And
it could be. I mean, I'm all for this. At this point, even though it's still hard to get the next gen consoles, I feel like stuff can stop being available.
Well, yeah,
for
that's
them,
the other thing. I mean, I'm sure the install base is still significantly higher on PS4 and Xbox One, but it is like a weird thing that, we're how many years into a new console generation at this point, and we're very likely looking at the reality of in 2023, God of War Ragnarok will come out for PS4. You know what I mean? Like, Why is
It
that
is
still
crazy.
happening?
I still have never seen one IRL. Because like even in a store, I have not seen a real PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I mean, I never saw one in store, but I was able to get one online. So, but just trying to work that out and like which Twitter accounts you have to follow and have
Yeah,
alerts on for is just
it's
like
insane.
it's a mess. Which is
Conversely,
why,
you can buy a Switch everywhere all the time.
yeah, even the new one, the OLED.
It's in every store. It's always stocked.
Yeah, and I have to throw it out there because we're eventually going to talk about the Steam Deck, but like Steam has this like really well thought out way of like signing up to be able to get a Steam Deck if you want one versus, you know, Microsoft and Sony just like it's a crapshoot. Try to follow the right Twitter account and maybe you'll get lucky.
It's so crazy.
Like I can't believe that we're this far into this and they haven't tried to do something similar. But like put your name in and we'll send you an email when it's your turn.
And then you can just sign up and no muss, no fuss. You don't have to follow,
and they don't have to worry about like a bunch of people scalping them. Like I don't
That's
know.
another problem, yeah.
I don't know why they haven't come up with something like that, but
What's this Mass Effect 4? I didn't see any. Shepard's back?
yeah, so there was a store listing on, I think it was BioWare's store. This happened like maybe a week and a half ago or so, 2 weeks ago. They had like some sort of, I think it was like a lithograph of some sort that had like a caption under it that made a reference to the fact that Shepard would be back. Like maybe this was like Shepard's, you know, final quest or whatever. And I'm forgetting the exact wording that was there. And I think they almost immediately had to like change it to like not spoil that or if that's even true at all. But so it gave a lot of people the speculation that maybe Shepard is returning. And maybe they will make the destroy option for Mass Effect 3 the canon ending of Mass Effect 3. And what lends a little bit of credence to the possibility that Shepard is coming back is the teaser trailer they did a couple of years ago where it shows Liara and she's on this like snowy planet and she like finds this little N7 insignia there and she, you know, maybe this is like a search for Spock situation where we find Commander Shepard like partway through the game and then maybe he either joins your crew or becomes the main character after a little while. Like
remind me what the destroy option was?
The destroy option is basically Shepard goes to the thing and he shoots at it and destroys it. The catalyst, he shoots it and destroys it, and there's this big explosion, and the whole Citadel catalyst thing goes crashing down. We're not sure where, and that having destroyed the catalyst, that like shuts down and destroys all the Reapers. And at the very end, like after all the credits have rolled, there's like a little post-credit scene where the camera kind of like slowly kind of moves around through all this rubble, and at the very last second it stops on this little, you can kind of see through like a bunch of stuff like being stacked on top of what is probably a body, and you see an N7 logo, and then you just hear this like breath, and it's like his chest sort of expands a little bit and then it goes to black again, indicating that it's very possible that Shepard survived all of that.
So in the destroy option, did all the mass relays explode?
In none of the endings did the mass relays explode. They were damaged because of the like pulse or whatever that shoots through it, but they're all repairable. Because in one of them, I think you like partner with the Reapers and they go around and help you repair the mass relays.
What? Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah, so it's very possible that they, I mean, the speculation is, what if they made like 3 different sort of versions of the game where, and maybe they don't have to do like full different versions of the game, but like You know how in Mass Effect 1 it's like pick your background. Are you like a
Mm.
spacer? Are you like I don't know. I forget all the other options, but like were you born in space? Were you born on Earth? Were you, this or that?
A Marine.
Yeah, what if one of them is you pick the destroy ending and Shepard's alive? And so he just is a character that can be in the game.
That's interesting. I'm into that. I don't believe. I mean, at this point, it's impossible that they would use save data from the original
Oh
trilogy
yeah,
in any
for
way.
sure that's long gone, I feel like. Well,
But
but there is Legendary Edition, so
yeah,
maybe they can tap into that somehow.
it does also. If he is just like under a bunch of rubble, that's another great way for them to be like, "Oh, Shepard, your face is all messed up. What do you look like now?" And then you get to do character creation
Well, yeah, I was
again.
going to say like if you're able to reconstruct Shepard in Mass Effect 2 after he like burns up in the atmosphere,
Yeah,
I feel like you could reconstruct a Shepard after his incident at the end of Mass Effect 3.
even if it's like weird Prothean technology where like maybe something captured his mind or something and put it into a crazy crystal. And then Liar finds it and is like, oh, this is Shepard's mind. And then like puts it into a robot body or something. I'm into that. Whatever. I mean,
Yeah, get
how
weird
long
with
do
it.
Asari live?
Like thousands of years.
So yeah, she could totally still be hanging around. She'd probably be the only one.
Yeah, that was interesting. They did show just Liara, so we don't know for sure that like
I
Garrus
mean,
or
Legion could be
yeah,
around.
Legion could be around. I know Krogan live like hundreds of years as well. I don't think they live quite as long as Asari, but yeah,
Your ship could be
it's
alive.
potential that
Edie.
some of those characters could still be alive.
That's interesting to me. That actually makes me. I before this I would have said I don't know if I would play another Mass Effect game, but if they rewrite it a little bit and make it so that that ending was not as bad, and Shepard comes back and is like, "Hey, all the Mass Effects work and Mass Effect relays work, and everything's cool now, and
Like
I'm a robot," I would be into
100% the
that.
mass relays will work. I'm just
That would
gonna
be
I'm
great.
gonna
Yeah,
guess at that at this point
I
like
feel
already.
like in the final scene, I saw one explode.
We've had this conversation like 20 times, I feel like. That you have seen the original ending and not the expanded ending, and that gave a little bit more clarity to what actually happened at the end of the game. And they very clearly make reference to the fact that the mass relays were not destroyed, they were just damaged. Like
Hmm.
those like it has the spinning pieces,
Right.
like those things I think flew off, but the mass
Oh,
relay
okay.
is still there. So all they have to do is like repair it and bring those pieces back, and it should be
Does the
functional again.
Does the destroy option, is that the one or one of the ones that ends with Neil Armstrong talking to that kid?
I think maybe they all end with that. That was maybe like another weird like post credit sequence.
Mm-hmm. Because that
And
took place way in the future, right? Because it was like, Grandpa, what was it like when it happened?
yeah, I think that's the implication.
How long do Turians live for?
I don't recall. I think
Would love
the
to see Garrus again.
I think Solarians have the shortest lifespan of like maybe 20, 30 years or something like that.
Well, yeah.
But Morden is dead by Mass
Yeah,
Effect
he's
3
not going to
anyway,
be.
so so he's gone no matter what. But
This is exciting news.
for sure, Krogan and Asari could still be alive.
Well, yeah, Krogan, because, I mean, wait, I wonder if it'll be canon that you cure the genophage.
Yeah, that's a good
I have
question.
a prediction.
Okay.
And I have not played Andromeda, so maybe this already happened. But I predict that in the next Mass Effect, you will be able to recruit a female Krogan. Did that happen in Andromeda?
I don't think so.
I think with the genophage cured, they will be reintroduced because
Yeah, and this many years later, yeah, for sure.
yeah. So there will be a female Krogan.
There
And her
probably will
name will
be.
be
Actually, I think you do talk to female Krogan in Andromeda, but I don't think one joins your crew, if I recall.
There's one in the original trilogy, I believe, but she's not playable. She's just like, you have to protect her or something.
Yeah, she's like the
veil.
one that you're going to rescue because she's very important to like the future of the Krogans, basically. Mm-hmm. The idea is that her and Rex are going to bring back the population.
I'll say. What was the name of the young Krogan that you found in like cryogenic stasis in the second or third one?
Oh yeah. See, so I recently jumped back into my Mass Effect Legendary playthrough, and just this last week I finished Mass Effect 1, and I have not started Mass Effect 2 yet. I did download it to my Steam Deck, so maybe soon, but
not yet, Zach. Hold your horses on that.
I'm getting so excited. No, but
let's talk about more about news.
I mean, I'm good with talking about Mass Effect the rest of the way too.
Did you ever play the original Dead Space?
I did not. This was another one that like I had a roommate in college that I watched play a bunch of this, but I never played it myself.
I played it with my friends. I feel like I remember not being alone when I played it, and it was pretty cool. I think we beat it. There were some cool 0G sections, and all the guns were very interesting because they were all built around like cutting off limbs and stuff. But a while back they announced a Dead Space remake, and I don't know if they showed any footage of it. They may have just showed screenshots or maybe just like a tech demo. Definitely no like actual gameplay, I don't think. But they are releasing it. It is moving forward, and January 27th is when it's coming out. Do you think you would... It's very scary. Would you check this out? This is a scary game.
Yeah, that's... Like, I'm not a big fan of scary games, but I did, like, dip my toes into Resident Evil 7 and 8 over the last, like, year or two, or whenever the latest one came out. I think that was last year. Maybe it was a year before, I forget. What is time? But I think maybe I could play this because it's also sci-fi, and I like sci-fi stuff more than I like whatever you would consider Resident Evil.
Yeah, I guess I think it's just like suspense horror fantasy. I don't really know where it fits these days.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But maybe I feel like it's going to depend. I mean, it's January, so you have to imagine there's not a ton of stuff out at that point, but also it could be another, like this year where everything got pushed back. And so then all of a sudden February ends up being like stacked like a fall month. So you never know.
Do you think that by January 1st, we will know the release dates of Breath of the Wild 2 and Starfield?
That's a good question, especially since...
I think at least one of those they're going to reveal the release date for at the Game Awards.
Yeah, and it's hard to say what Bethesda's thinking since they did just push back Starfield. Yeah. But they're probably, at this point, because they had to push it back, they're probably now very... worried, like if we go for spring and they say Breath of the Wild is coming out in the spring, that's bad. Like
what are we gonna do? Like what would you do if it was the same day they both came out?
Or even just like if it's another Horizon situation where it comes out a week before or after Breath of the Wild 2. I mean, you have to, like, that's a bad scenario.
Breath of the Wild 2 I think is a more known quantity at this point. So I'm more leaning towards that because I know I'm going to love it, whatever.
And didn't they say that they were moving it to spring? Did I make that up?
Did they say spring or did they just say 2023?
I'm trying to remember if they were that specific or not. Either way,
I mean,
I feel like Bethesda, if they wanted to play it safe, maybe they just like go, all right, we tried it this year, didn't work. How about 11/11/2023?
Yeah, I feel like that may be because, like, if they want Skyrim numbers, if they want to be the story for a couple of news cycles, like Elden Ring was, they can't have Breath of the Wild also dropping.
For sure. Especially, we also don't know about God of War Ragnarok, which I'm leaning increasingly to that not coming out this year as well.
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised.
So we're very likely looking at a scenario where all three of those games come out in 2023, and very possibly that two of them come out pretty close to each other.
That's going to be untenable. That's not going to be easy to do.
Yeah,
I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, what would you do? I mean, if Starfield, this game that we've been anticipating for years now, comes out a week away from Breath of the Wild 2, another game we've been anticipating for years, like, which one do you start with?
I can't answer that until
we see
June 12th.
We've seen more.
Yeah, on June 12th, which I believe will be a big Starfield reveal, even though they pushed it back, we will see what Starfield actually is fully. And at that point, I will be able to make that decision. When we do our coverage of that whole weekend, because I requested off for the 9th. I don't know about you, but that is when Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest is happening, which he has partnered with IMAX theaters with. So if you want to, you can go to an IMAX theater and watch it live as it happens, which I might do.
That would be really fun, actually.
It is at 2 o'clock, I believe, or maybe noon on the 9th. And if I do get that day off, I live close enough to an IMAX theater where I might consider it.
So
that's going to happen.
Does their stuff start in the morning, is my question?
That I think is at noon or 2. Then there's I think Kotaku or someone put out like a current like faux E3 list of things that are happening. And so that's happening. There's like a PC game show. There's something called like a Gentle Direct that is not Nintendo related at all. The two pillars though that I've seen are that's happening on the 9th, and that's a Thursday. And then on that Sunday, the 12th, is the Xbox showcase, the Xbox Bethesda showcase. And that's happening again at like noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I might have to take either that Friday or the Monday off. And then that would give us more time to make some content.
Yes. I would be down to record like day of on that Thursday. If I get that day off. Because I feel like that's going to have... Keighley is a showman. We've said it many times on this show. I think that he's going to have he's been tweeting a storm about this, like, oh, I've got some great cinematic stuff to show you. I've got a good number of gameplay reveals to show you. I think he's going to have some stuff up his sleeve, especially, if he pulled it through and he partnered with IMAX and people are going to be in movie theaters watching this, he better have some good stuff. It can't all just be like weird indie games from developers no one's heard of that aren't really going to make a splash. He's got to have some big stuff, you know?
I would definitely watch like a big deep dive on Starfield in an IMAX, because that would be awesome.
This is E3. If he's really trying to... they say that E3 might come back next year in full force, but this could be a replacement for that, because it's not happening this year. There is no official E3 this year.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be people doing their own thing this time.
He's got to nail it.
Maybe loosely tied to Summer Games Fest,
So, anyway, we'll see. I really want to start talking about the Steam Deck, but we have a couple more things to talk about. PlayStation unveiled more games that are coming out for their weird multi-level subscription plan that they unveiled.
Just browsing at the list, anything here jumping out to you? Bloodborne's
I never did play
it.
Spider-Man. Yeah, Bloodborne is cool.
Death Stranding's on it. Demon
Always
Souls,
love to see a Shadow of the Colossus.
Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut, God of War. They got some fairly recent stuff. Horizon Zero Dawn.
Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition. I never played 15. That was the car one where you were.
I own that one, and I still have not played it.
Hollow Knight is on here.
Is it?
Yeah. Always love to see Hollow Knight.
Returnal is on there. I think we already knew that one. All the Uncharted's are there.
Yeah.
Last Guardian.
Last Guardian was great. A great game.
I think actually I borrowed that from you and never gave it back to you.
You should play it. I bet it would. It has like an enhanced edition on PS5 if you put it in your PS5?
That's actually a good question. I should look into that.
I played that in 2 sittings, and I got done at like 7 a.m. And then got violently ill for like 24 hours. But I still liked it.
What got you ill?
I don't remember. It was probably something I ate. I had back then a terrible diet. And I also, I think, stayed up for a full 24 hours playing it. But yeah, I played it. I got it and I played it for a super long time. And then I took a break. And then I started playing it again at like 8 a.m. Or I'm sorry, 8 p.m. And I just played through the night until it was like fully day again. And then I was like, well, I'm done. And I went to my bed and then like laid down and I was like, oh, I'm like sweating a bunch. And then I just started throwing up a lot.
Ooh, that's not good.
I don't know what it was. It was probably something I ate, but a great game regardless.
Let's see. They do
Multiverses.
Oh yeah,
didn't
you
they
want to
announce
move
that
on?
Multiverses is well? I mean, we should move on, but also didn't they say Multiverses is also going to be included in this?
I don't know actually. I'm not seeing it on the list, but maybe I missed it. It's free to play, I think, isn't it? Isn't that the?
Oh well, then.
So
Okay.
I mean,
Then,
it
yeah,
doesn't
so
need to
technically
necessarily
would
be, but.
Do you care about this, or should we move forward?
I mean, it's a Smash clone. I think it looks better than I expected it to, but also I sort of don't care that much about it. I don't.
It's crazy how many of these there are now, because there's that Nickelodeon one too, which I thought this was for a second.
Yeah, I thought so as well, and then I saw like because everybody was doing previews of it this week, and I was like, oh, this is a different one, and then I recalled seeing the like preview way back when they were like, imagine a Smash clone in which Arya Stark fights Batman and Bugs Bunny, and I was like, well, that's bizarre, and it definitely is, but I think they actually
also someone from Breaking Bad is in there as well.
Are they?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that was a fake Photoshop that I saw.
Well, it's weird for sure, but I think they have done like a pretty good job based on what I've seen of like making it feel unique and interesting, and like that the characters are like interesting and how they've designed their like attacks and stuff. Like, I forget what her name is, but she's from Scooby-Doo. Is there? And you're like,
Velma?
Yeah, so this character probably isn't like a big melee focused character, right? Or you would think that. And so what she does is she like is just talking and like her speech bubbles come out and deal damage. And because she's like a character that's like trying to solve mysteries, she will get these clues. Like as she deals damage, like clues will randomly pop up, and if she goes and collects those, she needs to collect a certain number of them, and once she does that, she can call in like a police car that will like trap an enemy inside it, and then like it can like fall down to the ground and take somebody out and get a kill. So like they're doing weird interesting stuff that makes it like sort of a game within the game type of a thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it seemed like maybe Tom and Jerry had a similar thing going on where like the cat's attacks against the mouse he's like basically swinging at Jerry and he's just like dodging him, and so it looks like it's just like a cartoon where he's like running around trying to get this mouse, but he's like dealing damage to other people. But they can also like sort of team up and deal damage as well. So I don't know.
That's the other thing, right? Isn't there a focus on playing as pairs in this game?
Yeah, so it's a little more team focused as well. So you do actually have characters who are more like support style characters who can like shield their partner and stuff like that. So they are doing some interesting things with it, even though we're kind of brushing it off a little bit as just another Smash clone. But they've done, I think, some interesting stuff with it. So It's in
So you can-
closed beta right now, so nobody can just like jump on and play. But I think they're gonna have like some open betas coming up.
and it will be free to play.
I believe so, yes. And from what I've heard, the like battle pass or whatever it is they have, like it's not pay to win, and they're doing like a pretty good job of making it so that you can earn unlocks without like paying any money. So sounds fairly decent.
Norman Reedus, who we all know and love as that one guy, uh, was in an interview and he said something about how he's excited to be working on the next thing with Kojima. I don't know if he officially said like the next Death Stranding. I think he just said like the next one when someone talked about like I like so I guess what I'm saying is I'm not sure.
He explicitly said Death Stranding 2.
I don't know if he did explicitly say Death Stranding 2, but someone was like, how I was working on Death Stranding 2 in an interview with Norman Reedus, and he was like, oh man, it's great. Working with Kojima is so cool, and I'm having so much fun on the next one.
Just
and
started the second one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he meant like a next one Death Stranding or a next one game with Kojima, but people are speculating that they're making a Death Stranding 2. I own that game. I really need to play it fully, especially now that they have that like director's edition or whatever.
Yeah.
But you played all the way through it, right?
I did. Yeah. I liked it overall. It's like it's a weird game, and some of it can be frustrating because it's a lot of like people were joking when it initially came out. It's basically just fetch quest the game, which technically it is, but also there's a lot more to it than that. It's selling it a little short, but yeah, I definitely play through it. It's a weird, interesting Kojima thing that I think has a lot of interesting ideas.
I am all in on Kojima, even though I was not super into this last game, but I am confident that I will be interested in whatever else he puts out because he's just such a weirdo.
Yeah. So,
and then I just wanted to touch on this briefly. I think I've talked about it on this show. I have almost downloaded Genshin Impact a bunch of times, but I have not done it. And the makers of Genshin Impact revealed their next game, which is Zenless Zone Zero, which is an urban RPG as opposed to the fantasy land of Genshin Impact. And they haven't revealed much about it. There's basically only like one or two trailers, but it looks weird and interesting, and I bet it's going to be a very similar style where it's free to play and there's a bunch of unlockable characters, like a gacha system. And it's interesting. It's something I might talk more about if it ends up being something I download and play. But take a look at it.
Is it supposedly going to be just the same thing as Genshin Impact, but in a cityscape?
Maybe. I think I haven't really read too much about it, or they maybe have not revealed that much about it. I just saw a bunch of articles because I think this trailer came out like 8 days ago. And people are into Genshin Impact, even though it is like a little bit of a pay to win thing. It's possible to not pay at all when you play it if you just grind and you're just interested in just exploring. But the urban landscape of this, I think you can also play as like a giant bear with a grenade launcher, which is interesting to me. But I don't know, just something that popped up on my radar, and I thought I might check it out in a little bit if it ever does come out on current gen or Switch or computer. I'm sure it'll come out on computer. Genshin Impact, there's another reason I almost always try to download it, is it's like cross-platform completely. So like if I wanted to, like I could be on my computer and my girlfriend could be on like the PlayStation. We could play together. But I have not downloaded it yet. So
I heard a lot of good things about that game, and I know a lot of people were like hopelessly addicted to it for a long time. I'm a little bit surprised that they're like making another game on top of that, because it seemed like that was going to be like their Destiny style game where they just like support it for 10 years or whatever.
There's a huge update apparently that's coming out for it pretty soon. I think on May 30th, they're going to drop like a big 2.17 or 2.7 update that's supposedly going to be it's going to add a ton of stuff and a bunch of stuff people have been asking for a long time. But and maybe I'll dive in at that point. But
have they discovered
right
what
now,
the Genshin impact is?
that's a great question. It probably I've heard that the story is extremely convoluted and kind of fades into the background. I think it's like you go to a crazy world and immediately your twin sister or twin brother gets kidnapped. And then you have to like find, the whole game is like you have to track them down, I think, but you very quickly just start wandering around aimlessly and having hapless adventures. But I don't know.
As far as I can tell, this new one, you're going to be returning Zen to Zone Zero.
That's what I think, because right now it's Zenless.
It's without Zen right now, and you must return the Zen.
I am ready to talk about the Steam Deck.
Okay. What do you want to know?
Through. Well, all right. So we talked about it a little bit off pod, but you said it is lighter than you expected. How's the, like, when you're really playing it? Does the fan rev up? Can you hear the fan in it?
You can a little bit, but I mean, if you have the volume up, it'll probably like outdo the fan noise. Plus, like, I haven't tried yet, but I should try Bluetoothing some earbuds to it, because most likely you're going to be playing with some sort of earbuds. In which case, I would feel like you wouldn't hear it. And I did say, when I first unboxed it, I was like, ooh, that's lighter than I thought it was going to be. But I have to say, after like playing with it for a little while, it does, like, you start to feel the weight of it a little bit. My wrist did get kind of tired. I had to like find a new position. But I played, like, this morning. I got up, I made some coffee, sat down on my couch, and like put something on my TV, and then I just played like Death's Door for like 2 hours, and that was great.
How's the performance?
Good. I don't think I have any complaints about, like, as I've played Death's Door, I haven't run into any issues with it there.
So can you, much like the Switch, can you like suspend the gameplay and just like walk away for a while?
Yeah, you just hit the power button and it goes into like suspend mode, and then when you're ready, you just hit the power button again and it pops right back up.
You don't have a dock for it at this point, right?
I don't. I need to get one.
So what are your likes and dislikes?
I have run into some problems. Like, I tried pairing an Xbox controller to it. So like when I was playing last night, and I was like, ooh, it is actually I'm starting to feel the weight of it. My wrists are starting to get a little bit fatigued. So I wanted to put it on this little stand I have for my desk. That normally I would just put like a phone, or if I had a tablet, I could put that in it. But I was gonna prop my Steam Deck up in it, and I was just gonna like connect one of my Xbox Series X controllers to it, and it would not connect, or it thought it was connected, but my controller wasn't understanding that it was connected. And I assume if I had the right like USB-C to USB-C cord on me, I could just like maybe plug it directly into the Steam Deck itself, and maybe that would work. But for whatever reason, and I tried rebooting and that did not solve it, but I cannot seem to get it to connect to a controller, which, I mean, I guess all of that might be moot if I had a dock that I could just plug directly into. So that was a problem. The other problem I've run into is it seems to not be backing up my Steam like cloud saves. So another thing I wanted to test was I wanted to play for a little while on the Steam Deck, and then I wanted to like launch Death's Door on my computer and see if it picked up where I left off. And it cannot seem to find that save file. So that's only, for now anyway, the save file is only on my Steam Deck.
Interesting.
Which it's weird because the Steam Deck seems to have found the previous save file I had when I was playing on PC when I originally got Death's Door. But I started over because I hadn't made it that far originally, and I wanted to like remember how to play it and where I was going and everything. So I just started over, and I expected that save file would be available if I launched it on PC. But it says that the cloud save is up to date on both PC and on my Steam Deck.
Interesting.
But that save file is nowhere to be found, so I have no clue. And I've done some like searching on Google, like,
Is it a common problem?
save file not syncing, and like the only thing I seem to find is, oh, just go into the setting and make sure that this box is checked. I'm like, well, yeah, it's checked, but still got nothing.
Interesting.
I did see. It seemed like there was a Reddit thread where some other people with the Steam Deck were having a similar problem. I don't know if I didn't. It didn't seem like anybody had like a concrete solution to it. So I'm not sure what the issue is. I maybe just need to go to support through Steam and see if they have an answer. But so that's
How far are you in Death's Door?
So I am working through like the forest area, heading towards the Frog King, I believe is the boss that I'm about to fight. And I have to say, so we talked about that game compared to Tunic and how they're kind of similar games, but we think Death's Door is sort of a better execution on the ideas there. And I have to agree after having put a bunch of time in the last like day or two into Death's Door that they're both
What do you
sort
think it
of
is?
Zelda-like crossed with Souls-likes, and it just...
What works in Death's Door that's not working in Tunic?
It's hard to say. I think the combat for sure is just much better. I can't really put my finger on what it is. I think like the dodge roll mechanics are just a little bit snappier, and maybe the sword slashes are as well, and maybe you have just a little bit more range on it on your sword swipes, and it's just something about it. I'm not quite sure because you don't have a shield, so you can't block in Death's Door. You just dodge. In Tunic, you do have a shield, so you can block. But I really don't like their like stamina system in Tunic, where like a dodge roll or a block with your shield or an attack all use stamina. And if your stamina is depleted, you're going to take additional damage. And if you get to the point where your stamina has run out, like for sure you're going to take damage because you can no longer block or dodge. So like it just is a no-win situation. And so I did get to a point, because I was playing some of that this last week. I got to a point where I just went into the accessibility features and turned off the whole stamina thing. So I have infinite stamina. And that helped, but it didn't make the game easy either. Like I got stuck on a boss and was not sure if I even wanted to continue, even though I like what I've played of that game. I like the art style. I like the music. I've been enjoying like navigating the world and like finding new abilities and all of that stuff, but just the combat of it is frustrating.
It's everything except for the gameplay is great about that game.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that game is so good in so many ways. It's just not the actual gameplay of it for some reason. But Death's Door definitely a better execution on a lot of similar ideas.
So, do you ever use the touchpads, or are you mostly just using the joysticks to do stuff?
I've just been using the joysticks. I assume, like, what I've seen a lot of people say is if you're playing like a shooter, that the like touchpads end up being like a much better way to aim in a shooter versus using like the right thumbstick. So I haven't tested that out yet, but maybe if I start up Mass Effect 2 today, maybe I will give that a shot.
How's the battery life been?
It's been about what I expected, so you can play for maybe 2 or 3 hours-ish. I don't know. I feel like I played for 2.5, 3 hours last night and still had battery, so maybe it depends on the game you're playing.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because I started out with Vampire Survivors because I wanted to see how that played using a thumbstick to navigate as opposed to WASD. And
how was that?
It was as good as you would expect it to be. Much more ideal than WASD. And begs the question of why this is not on Switch and PlayStation and Xbox.
It is crazy, yeah. I feel like it's got to happen eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most obvious thing. Like, get this on Switch at the very least. But now I have it on Steam Deck, and I have to say, I picked up my Switch after playing Death's Door on Steam Deck for a couple of hours. And I was like, man, it feels tiny now because the screen is
What else
bigger.
have you loaded on there?
So far, I've only downloaded 4 games. I already mentioned I downloaded the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, but I have not started that yet. I downloaded Vampire Survivors, which I only played like 1 round of. I've been playing a bunch of Death's Door on it. I did also download Star Renegades just because I've been playing that lately. Oh, yeah. But I don't know. Recommendations? What else should I download on it? What should I try?
You know I love Hollow Knight.
Yes.
Always would recommend that.
Oh, I forgot. I did like years ago. I bought Chrono Trigger on Steam and I never started playing it. And I was like, maybe this is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Especially since that Chrono Cross game just came out as well.
Yeah.
I could like maybe knock both of them out. 2 blind spots off my list of games to play.
What else? Let me consult my Steam library real quick and see what else might.
Yeah, I'm just looking at mine as well. Oh, I did not play that Eastward game, even though you were kind of lukewarm on it. So I'm not.
The first couple of hours were great. Like basically up until the 3rd town, I would say it's a very solid game.
Well, and it also depends on like what is, approved for Steam Deck, or like what's also what will work versus what is actually supported. And I want to say there is a way to like select just Steam Deck like approved titles.
I think that is true because it's a little badge. It's like a tag on games that you can select.
Yeah, I need to look
Haiku
into
the Robot.
Oh yeah, that would maybe be a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. And you can knock that out in like 6 or 7 hours.
Really? How long is Death's Door?
I can tell you because I'm looking at my Steam library. Wait, is this in alphabetical order? Hold on. Death's Door. I played for 8.3 hours.
Did you struggle at all with that game? Because I have gotten to a section where it feels not good. I was loving it.
Is it that part where you're like kind of meandering on you have to basically do a battle and then get to the next area and do a battle and you're unlocking shortcuts as you go?
Well, I feel like that describes every area of the game.
That's a good point, yeah.
But
I feel like there's a part right before.
I'm heading through the forest area, trying to get to the Frog King guy, and I have entered an area where there's like these 3 waves of enemies that spawn. Mm-hmm. And there's like a little like water area that you can fall into if you're not careful as you're dodging. And I feel like I always lose one of my 4 health blips by accidentally falling in that, just trying to dodge. So that's the problem. And then
I pretty consistently was able to get through stuff, except for there is a boss in like the icy area that's like high up that kind of rolls at you. That I found to be very difficult, but I eventually got through it. And then I was stuck on the final boss for days. I would play for a little bit and I just couldn't do it and I would stop and I eventually got through it. But the final boss I found to be pretty difficult.
I don't think I'm that far yet, so...
No, you have plenty of time.
Maybe
and
it may
just be that
something that you got through very easily. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it just takes a while to get fully... Because you probably don't even have... Do you have like a spell yet?
I can throw fire.
Okay.
That's the only one I have. So I have arrows, which you start out with, and I have the ability to throw like a fireball.
Yeah, I love every time I think about that game. I just think about the music in it is so good.
It's very good, I have to say. The soundtrack to that game is great. The soundtrack is great to Tunic as well, but
it's true.
Man, Death's Door. I
Um,
kind of regret having not played Death's Door last year because, I mean, it probably could have made my top 10.
well, and you have the benefit now of people have probably made a ton of videos about it, about how to like easily get past things. Where I played it, I think right when it came out, and so there weren't necessarily guides for how to defeat bosses, and so I kind of just had to hoof it and eventually get through it.
Yeah. Um, like I said, I haven't had too much trouble getting through it until this one section. There's just a few two enemies that spawn in, and I'm like, I almost don't have enough room to maneuver without falling into this water area. And like the last wave of it, at least I hope it's the last wave. There's these like three big knight guys that come in with these hammers and they have shields,
Yeah. Ooh,
and
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
their attacks have just enough range that they can hit me while
Yeah.
I still can't hit them. But they also, if you get far enough away from them, they start throwing pots at you that do this like fire explosion.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how to take them out because they're
I think I recall the room you're talking about, and I think the way that I got around that was I just kited them in a very specific way where two of them would be far away, and so I could very quickly sneak up to one and hit him like two or three times, then run away. It took me a long time, and I was very patient, but I eventually got past that room.
yeah, I've gotten close a couple of times, but it's just I don't know. It feels like I need one more health blip and one
Yeah,
more magic blip to be able to get through it, and I don't know how to upgrade those or if you even can.
you can.
Maybe I just haven't
There's
gotten there
a
yet.
little shop bird in like the main library or like office area where you can go and talk, and he'll upgrade stuff for you.
Well, I know that you can go like turn in souls and upgrade like your damage output and your speed and your like magic slash arrow ability damage, but like
Mm.
to actually upgrade your health and your like amount of magic,
Yeah,
I've
you have
not
to.
seen
Those
that.
are collectibles. Yeah, you'll eventually. Those are like hidden areas, and you'll come upon them, and then you get like similar to other things. You have to collect like three of a thing, and then it all links together and becomes a new health or whatever, or a new magic slot.
I see. Well, I have not found enough of those to be able to do that, unfortunately. So I'm dealing with like the lowest amount of health and magic you can have. So maybe I just need to look up like where to find some of that stuff. But I do kind of like the idea. So one of the things that frustrated me about Tunic as I was playing through it is there's an area in that game that I just played through. I think it was like the quarry or the monastery or something like that, where as you're going around, there are these like broken obelisks that like deal damage to your health, but they don't just deal damage to your health, they actually reduce your overall health. So it's
Mm.
possible because you have to run past them as well. And so it can basically take your health all the way down to zero so that you're basically just one shot as soon as somebody hits you. And there are like these sniper enemies that like shoot at you from range and these other characters that come try to melee you. So it's like a really difficult area. And so you eventually get a mask that makes it so that those obelisks don't damage you, but for a while there, you just have to tough it until you eventually get there. And they're just like no bonfire areas in order to like save your progress and like regenerate your health. So you just have to like keep progressing forward even though you basically have no health. And I was just like begging the game for like a campfire to
Yeah,
like stop at.
that
And
sounds torturous.
so it was really rough there for a while, and I was getting angry at the game. But the thing that both Tunic and Destor do is they like do this thing where as you progress, you eventually find, oh, now I can drop this ladder. So the next time I
Yeah.
die, I don't have to go back through that gauntlet of enemies I just got through. I can just like go straight to this ladder and bypass that section altogether.
Hmm.
So that stuff feels pretty good. Um, I would say definitely feels a little bit better in Death Door because I feel like they do a better job of like pacing that stuff out. Whereas sometimes
Yeah.
in Tunic, especially as I've gotten later on in the game, it feels like you go a long way before you find something like that. So I don't know if I will finish Tunic, but maybe what I need to do is just turn it on easy mode and fight my way through that boss that I've been struggling with, and then
Yeah.
it'll
Turn
feel
that
better
invincibility
again.
on.
Yeah.
Should we talk about some things we've been playing and watching?
Yeah. So why don't you start since I've been talking a lot?
I beat Haiku the robot.
How was it?
Good. I didn't unlock everything. It was not. I didn't go like hard on it like I did with Hollow Knight. It's a pretty short game. I think I only played it for like 6 hours. And I didn't feel the need to go back in and collect everything else, but it was very fun and interesting. The story was cool. And the even though it is a little bit monochromatic in a lot of ways, it does vary up the environments quite a bit. I really liked it. If it had been a little bit longer, I think I would have been into that. And I might go back in at some point and unlock more stuff. But I did watch a video of how to get like the true ending, and I am not going to do it because it seems very difficult. You basically have to fight 3 bosses at the same time.
Yeah.
But it was cool. I liked it a lot, and it was definitely worth it. And I think I would recommend it. It's like very much. I think it's kind of like a Hollow Knight light, in that it doesn't have the depth of anything really, like as far as combat or story or just like polish. But it's still really, really, really good, and I enjoyed it. And then I also I watched that Chip and Dale movie last night on Disney Plus because it came out on Disney Plus, and I actually really liked that too. It is like jam packed with visual comedy and references. Where like I feel like I have to watch it again because there's definitely stuff that I missed. Because like every moment where they could put in a little sight gag or something, they definitely do. And there's like video game stuff in there as well. But yeah, that was really cool. If you have Disney Plus, I feel like it's a definite recommend. I love anything Lonely Island because I think Andy Samberg is a cool guy. I think I maybe have talked about this on the podcast previously, but Baba Is You had an update where they unveiled or they released like a bunch of extra content for it. Including they just like there's so many more mechanics in that game. You can go. I think the fan community just went crazy and invented a bunch of stuff. And so I don't know how much they took from that, like the fan user base, but a bunch of crazy ideas in this new. And you can play it right from the title screen. You can just go over. There's a little button for like new adventures, so you don't have to have already unlocked stuff in the original game to play it, but. It's great. And there's so many levels that if I get stuck on something similar to Elden Ring, I can just move on to a different path and play for a while and come back to stuff and maybe figure it out. But I'm constantly, especially with these new levels, I'm constantly impressed by crazy stuff that happens that they like allow the game to do just by like moving text around. And then the last thing that I have to recommend is a new anime that's happening right now. Spy X Family is kind of a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type thing. I love a story where it's like kind of a romance story where there's like people have secrets kind of a thing. And that Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie is a great one because both of them have secrets and then it's revealed and they work together and it's great. They're making a TV show. I think Donald Glover is making a TV show that is Mr. and Mrs. Smith that I'm very excited about. But Spy X Family is... an anime where a guy is like a master thief, or not a master thief, he's a master spy, and he gets basically he has this mission, these 2 warring nations, there's like an East nation and a West nation. He has a mission to go into that evil nation, not evil, but just like the warring nation, and he has to get his kid into a private school and get close to this crazy guy whose kid is also in that private school. But this guy doesn't have a child or anything. So he has to get a kid, and he ends up getting this really adorable kid who is also a telepath, but nobody knows that. And then he has to get a wife, and he happens to run into this woman who is actually works for the rival nation and is like an assassin. And so through a crazy series of events, they pretend to be a family together, but none of them know anyone's secrets, and they sort of live together and have this comedic time. But I'm loving it, man. It's a breath of fresh air, and every episode is very funny, and I can't get enough of it. I think I'm going to download the comics and read those as well because it's so good. But a high recommend from Aaron.
What are you watching this on?
Crunchyroll, which also the Crunchyroll just announced that they got distribution rights for the next movie by that guy that made Your Name. So I think I'm just going to be able to stream that when it comes out, which is great.
Yeah, that's cool. So I have been playing, in addition to Tunic and finishing Mass Effect 1, which was great, and I was very happy to get back into that series. On Game Pass for PC, I have started Trek to Yomi and Citizen Sleeper. And Trek to Yomi, I think, is the one that I was very excited to play, but I'm feeling pretty lukewarm on it. While I think it is visually very, very cool and very good looking, it's like a, black and white sort of side scrolling samurai game. And so it looks very much like an Akira Kurosawa movie. And it does some really cool things where, though it is mostly side scrolling, occasionally you'll move, towards the screen or away from the screen. And when you do that, sometimes the camera will kind of like track upwards and it'll zoom out a little bit, so you'll get more of a wider shot. And then sometimes as you go to like fight somebody, side scrolling, you'll stop on like a bridge and you'll be fighting someone, and it ends up looking like very cinematic, like just like the framing of it. And they do a great job with that. But much like Tunic, the combat is just not very good. It's like really lackluster. You're just like mashing like basic attacks, and you do have a parry where, so if you hold, I think it's the left bumper, you can block attacks, but if you tap it just before they attack you, then you will does this thing where like it slows down time and you get this parry animation, and then that leaves them open for you to just like whack at them for a little bit until they die, basically. But I found the timing of it to be very inconsistent, like wildly inconsistent, such that it's pretty frustrating at times. So I ended up turning the difficulty down on the game just to like, because I almost feel like they're going for a little bit of like a Dark Souls difficulty thing where they're like, all right, here's like 3 enemies to fight, and it's going to be really tough to get through it because like any one of them can take you out in just a couple of hits if you're not careful. And so once you get through that group of enemies, you can make it to a little shrine where you save and it restores your health, and then you move on to the next area and you take out another group of enemies, and then you find another shrine, and it's that sort of a progression loop. But like the combat's not good enough to want to have that difficulty, but also you're sort of playing the cinematic thing, and it suddenly breaks all like sense of that cinematic like storytelling to just constantly be dying and like running back up to the same group of enemies, just doing that over and over again. Like it suddenly becomes not like the whole thing is broken. The whole thing crumbles apart if that ends up being the case. So I just turned the difficulty down, and it made it much more satisfying to get through because you're not dying repeatedly, but also it didn't make the combat more fun. It just made it easier to get through. So it's not a very long game, so I should have probably finished it by now, but I've just been like jumping in, and I'll make it through like a big checkpoint, and then I'll just like turn it off again just So I don't know if I recommend it unless you have Game Pass. I would say if you have Game Pass, maybe check it out and see if it's to your liking. But I don't think I would go out of my way to get the game. So, but maybe look up some gameplay of it or like a trailer or something just to see how visually impressive it is.
What is Citizen Sleeper?
So I don't really understand this genre. I want to say it's similar to that like Norco game or like even what was that? What was that one game? It's sort of like there's a lot of text to it. I think you started it recently.
Oh, Disco Elysium?
Yeah, Disco Elysium.
It's like a point and click adventure?
Yeah, kind of a point and click adventure. There's a lot of text that you're reading through. Great soundtrack. I actually think it's really cool. I haven't played super far into it, but like you're sort of going around completing these tasks. And the story I'm going to botch because I only have just started it and it's been like a few days since I last played it. But I think you are a person who has been like, your consciousness has sort of been put into a little bit like Altered Carbon into a different sleeve, so to speak, although they call it, I think, frames. But the frame you're in is like owned by this like corporation or whatever. And so the idea is that you were basically tied to their labor. You were working for them. And they had this like drug that they would administer to that frame to keep it alive. And without it, you will basically die, but you escaped them. And so you're now like on this ship / space station type of a thing. And so you're trying to figure out how to stay alive. And you're like doing little jobs to make money. And you're like meeting these different people and sort of building relationships with them. And you only like at the start of every day you're given like a certain number of dice, and the rolls on them will determine like your ability to complete different tasks and whether there's like a positive or negative outcome with them. And as you complete different tasks or you use your dice to get through certain tasks, you'll like sort of move different quests further along and different options will open up for you. And I believe, if I recall correctly, like every time you go back to like sleep to sort of end a day, you have this like weird dream sequence that always happens. And eventually you realize that somebody is like, they're chasing you or they're after you. And so they're sort of off in the distance and they're coming for you and you only have like a certain amount of time or whatever. And so I'm not sure where that's going or how that's going to play out, but it's a really interesting game. I definitely recommend checking it out.
It sounds interesting. So, like, are you clicking around to walk around, or is it just a bunch of vignettes you're looking at?
It's vignettes that you're looking at. You kind of scroll around, and you're always outside the ship, but you have these different like points of interest to click on, and then it brings up like a vignette that you can like do something with.
Interesting.
But I think it's pretty cool, actually. I might jump back in eventually and play some more of it when the Steam Deck is a little less
alluring.
Yeah, enticing to me right now. So I need to figure out how to get Game Pass games on the Steam Deck, and then maybe I could play it on the Steam Deck. But but that's all I've got. Oh, I did watch Doctor Strange. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet.
I have not seen it yet.
Okay, so maybe we wait until you've seen it before we talk about it.
Okay. What about just top level? Did you like it or not like it?
Yes and no. Some good, some bad.
Oh.
I was a little...
Interesting.
Have some mixed feelings about it, but I don't know if I want to get into them.
I watched Top Gun this week for the first time.
Oh, really? You had never seen Top Gun before?
Never seen it, but I have been hearing things about how the new one is like better than the original in a lot of ways, and you really have to go see it in theaters because it's like an action spectacle that like demands to be seen on the big screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like if you could watch this on like the biggest screen possible, you're gonna want to, just based on what little we've seen from trailers. So,
All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for us this week.
yeah, go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Starside Cafe, and leave this podcast a rating, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.